Assalamu alaikum, people listening and watching. You're tuning into the Let's Walk podcast. I'm your host, Ataur Rahman. Today, I'm joined by Brain K Fung. And first of all, Brian, thank you for being here. And yeah,
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I know, we had just previously spoken, said this is a couple months in the making. So thanks for your persistence in getting me on. Very excited to speak with you and chat further.
so Brian, you have a very decorated resume, and I didn't want to, take, like, introduce. I thought, I'll do injustice, like if I'd be, introducing yourself because I'd be missing few points. I was like, I'll say Brian to, introduce himself to the people who don't know.
Sure. I'll try to be super short. Basically, my background is an informatics pharmacist. Did 2 years of residency, and then now I have officially transitioned into the health tech world, and my title now is a health data architect. Keep it very short.
So, Brian, like how did you actually come? I've been, following your YouTube, obviously with Kevin, the godfather of YouTube pharmacy, obviously, and so I know a little bit about your journey. But for the people who don't know, how did you actually figure out that you want to do pharmacy? Because you said you enjoyed coding and computers back in the day.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a couple of milestones there, but maybe we can just do the one where it's journey to pharmacy, and maybe if you want to elaborate, we can elaborate on the informatics piece. So just like what you were saying, I grew up loving computer engineering, coding, a lot of technical things growing up, and I always thought I was going to be an engineer. But my grandma was diagnosed with ovarian cancer when I was in high school. And, whenever, I should say, anyone that has had a family member that has had like a medical issue can probably attest, like it's scary, it's hurtful, it's just very strange, right? And because I didn't know anything about biology or healthcare at the time, it made me feel very uncomfortable and almost felt helpless because there's nothing I knew or could do about my grandma's condition. At the same time, there was also no one that was in healthcare at that time, so I had no one to ask questions to. So that was in the end of high school, and I went to college my first year, and I had continued to pursue engineering at the time, but pharmacy and healthcare was always in the back of my mind. And after my first year was over, I realized that, I think that my goal is probably like my heart is in engineering and stuff, but my grandma means a lot to me, and she's probably my closest family member. And so I decided at that time to switch into pharmacy. And if it's why pharmacy is because I can't see blood, but pharmacy gives me an introduction to healthcare and to learn more about how I can take care of my grandma, who as of today is like a 20 plus year survivor of ovarian cancer. And so I always, even to this day, help her with her meds and things like that. So it's really nice. That's the that's the story there.
I think almost everyone who gets into like healthcare, they have something similar. I myself, have a similar story where my uncle, he had a small pimple, and then the doctor recommended an antibiotic, and then what ended up happening is that that had an allergic reaction. Then he ended up getting dialysis because it was really bad, and then which eventually led to him passing away. So it was a really weird situation, and obviously, like the healthcare system in third world countries kind of like it's kind of weird. We have a lot of loopholes and everything. So that's what made me come into pharmacy and everything. Obviously, PharmD being the intersection between the healthcare side, like being in the hospital, and obviously uh, the basic dispensing of drugs and everything. So there's somewhere in between. So that was kind of like my journey into pharmacy. It's kind of similar to I feel it's the same with almost every healthcare profession or someone who is going into healthcare, that they have something similar like that. So I have some points written down so that like I'll be kind of structured. So if I'm looking down, it's over there. So with this, I actually want to jump into, like, you did your PharmD, and myself being in PharmD and a lot of my audience being in pharmacy. Like, did you ever doubt your decision of doing pharmacy? Because like, obviously the course and everything, and like some people telling you the job market and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So a couple of things. The first thing is that I don't really, my mantra is not to live life with regret. So any decisions I've made in the past, I made it with the most or best information I had at the time. So I don't regret pharmacy from that perspective. And even looking back now, doing more of a tech role that I am now, I am very appreciative and happy that I chose to incorporate healthcare to some extent in this journey. If I just never did pharmacy at all and just went pure computer engineering or pure tech, I think that would have been a miss because the combination of healthcare experience through pharmacy and tech has, I think, made my life so fulfilling. So no regrets from that perspective. The job market is still bad, in my opinion, for pharmacy. I don't know if it's the same where you are. I imagine it's also very cyclical in terms of like, you know, any job market can get saturated, but then after a while it gets not saturated and it just keeps, cycling over and over again. But in short, the answer to your question, no, no regrets to pharmacy. I'm very happy with the path that I chose.
Hmm. That makes sense. Like with the job market, I recently had a conversation with one of the PhD candidates, and he was like, he was talking about how the market is getting kind of saturated, especially in India, where I am from now. Uh, there's a course called, are you aware of clinical SaaS?
Clinical SaaS?
Yep.
I don't. SaaS not SaaS is not software as a service. You're not talking about that, are you?
Yeah, no, software as I think that is like a more of a statistics kind of thing, like coding for
Oh,
clinical trials.
SaaS.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I know what SaaS is. Okay, I was thinking about
So
something else. Yes, I know SaaS.
So what happens in India is usually that you need a certification for that course, right? So what ends up happening is that people who are not from pharmacy, they end up kind of like learning this course and everything, getting the certification. So what ends up happening is that people who are in pharmacy, they kind of like, there's a lot of people doing this kind of job, so that's what gets like more saturated. And he was selling that this how the market has been and everything. So yeah, the saturation kind of it- it's kind of weird, like with other markets and everything. And yeah, he's talking as to, like,
Yeah.
how the salaries and everything, himself, pursuing a PhD, and then he's planning to switch careers into tech, so that obviously the salary and everything. But then he realized that how people are kind of diving through into this field. And do you think like coding is a must for healthcare professionals, like especially people in pharmacy?
Um. Yes and no. So maybe must might be a strong word. But I did write a perspective article just probably a couple months ago about how I thought all clinicians need to code. And so I'll say a couple comments there. The first comment is that if you're gonna go into the practice of pharmacy, should you or do you need to know how to code? Most definitely not. If you go into informatics, do you need to know? I don't. I also don't think you need to know. It's very helpful if you do, but you don't need to. However, I wrote an article a couple of months ago, I think, or maybe last year. I don't remember when it was, about how all clinicians should need to learn how to code because of the fact that most of healthcare is going to computers now. Every part of healthcare is in the computer somewhere somehow. And I think if you did know how to code, or maybe have had maybe one course or just have some basic understanding of it, the ability to make healthcare better is just so much more exaggerated in that case. I think clinicians that know how to think that way will make healthcare better in general. Um, but it's kind of mixed. That's why I say it depends. I kind of go back and forth. But short answer, no. Would it be very nice? Yes. I'll leave it at that.
Do you think like moving from like the clinical side to the tech side, having the coding already uh, like in your toolkit has helped you?
Could you say that one more time?
Like
If I,
moving from like the clinical side to the more techie side, having the coding already helped you, like you kind of have a leg up already.
oh yeah, definitely. If you're someone who is interested in moving to tech, it would definitely be very, very helpful. And for that case, probably required, very much required. And SQL would be like a bare minimum. You just have to know SQL and then some other type of programming language, like R or Python, something like that.
I kind of, read your LinkedIn, everything, like your experiences and everything, so that I can have questions from different timelines. So, how has, being an assistant professor, clinical assistant professor, help you, like, give you a new perspective, as in being a student for so many years and then, teaching, obviously. So, like, has it changed your perspective of pharmacy, and like, how has it changed like, your different viewpoints, right? Being on the different sides.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good question. I don't think anyone has ever asked me that. um, so it's definitely changed things. Funny enough, I'm actually going to be meeting with one of my students right after this. I think a couple of things, and forgive me for a second here because I'm trying to think of how best to answer the question. The first thing is probably having empathy for students. Those of us who have worked for a few years probably make a lot of assumptions about what students should know and also have maybe very high and unrealistic expectations of what they should know. So being empathetic to, hey, I was once in your shoes. I also asked a lot of questions. I also didn't have the answers. So making sure that you are patient with students, take your time to explain things, don't use a lot of jargon. But that's one big thing is just empathizing with the students. That's one. The second thing that I've learned from teaching others is that this is probably a personal thing. I tend to talk a lot. And I think when it's a student professor capacity, it's also very important that the student talks a lot too. So I have a lot of ideas of what I want a student to learn or what goals they should achieve, but that's incorrect. It should always come from the student. So I've switched a lot of my thinking to be, what are your interests? What would you like to learn? And then based on the conversations there, I usually will then talk and share my experience and advice with them from there. But usually it used to be, you should do this, you should code, you should do a residency, you should do pharmacy school, but that's incorrect to say that. And so um, that's another thing I've learned quite a bit. And then the last thing maybe I'll say is that students are very smart. Every single time I meet with another student, I realize I forget a lot of things and they always teach me. And the other thing is that healthcare changes a lot, so I'm always learning something new from them. So yeah, just making sure that these professor-student relationships are also the students learn from you just as much as you learn from them. I'll stop there.
Yeah, you put it very nicely. I like that. So, on the note of learning, I actually want to know, like, actually went to one of your earlier Facebook posts, and you had your like the courses you're going to be taking till 2026 planned out, summer, spring, and everything. I was like, this thought came into mind, like you'll be like what's like pursuing education so that you'll get like so that you'll get to learn something new, or is it because like you want to like kind of have a wide, what do you say, I'm actually not getting the right word, like a wide arsenal of things, something like that.
Yeah, that's so. I have a couple. First comment I want to say to that is that you are probably by far one of the interviewers that have done the most research on me. So I want to thank you for that because being on the guest side of things, it's always nice when someone does research on you and look things up. So I'll say that. So thank you for that. The second thing I'll say is that I probably have a couple of responses to your question there. I think the first response would be that my interest is always in learning. I like learning new things. It's just the challenge of learning something new and being a beginner again is really exciting to me. So I like that. The second thing is that I think when you combine different fields, you create something very unique and novel. And let me explain. The thing that you brought up, the whole schedule that I had, is very much my schedule for computer science. So I'm not knowledgeable in that territory. I understand healthcare, I understand informatics. I don't know computer science. But if I do know it, I think you can create very unique solutions to difficult problems and solve things in a very, very different way. And more importantly, maybe for your audience, is that I think the more different skills you have or more diverse your skills, the more marketable you are as a person to like employers and just in general. I can tell you that a lot of the opportunities that I have had in my life is because of those different experiences. It makes you very marketable to get internships, to get jobs, to get scholarships, all those kind of things. Um, yeah, so I'll stop. I'll stop there.
Yeah. So, so you're saying having all of these experiences kind of makes you like a more marketable person, but at the same time, I feel that it kind of makes you a whole complete person because you kind of exploring all of your different interests, right? Like a more
Oh yeah,
holistic
that
person.
yes, yes, absolutely. These are definitely areas like I'm very interested in naturally, and so it's just me following my curiosity, and makes me whole, like you said.
So this is one thing I'm really curious about. How do you actually like during pharmacy school and be after that? How do you actually keep up with like all your passions, or whether it's your media company, whether it's photography, whether it's YouTube, and you obviously your academy as well? How do you keep all your passions like together and obviously work at the same time, because doesn't it lead to like burnout or something?
Oh yeah, it's a great question. Very great question. It does it lead to burnout? Yes, it does. I've been burnt out many, many, many times. I'm not sure I would recommend what I do to a lot of folks because I don't think it's a healthy way to live sometimes. So I've been burnt out. Pharmacy school burnt out. There's residency. I've been burnt out. Job been burnt out. Like every different area of my life, I've experienced burnout, probably because of the things you just mentioned. Trying to do too many things at once. But how I do so many things at once is my calendar. And it's probably different for every single person. So I've tried like using like a notepad to take down notes and just like use that as a way to get things done, like check off tasks. I've used like online tools and things like that, but the best tool I've used over the years has been a calendar. So I think being very diligent with your calendar allows you to accomplish a lot of things. If you, some people may have seen like posts I've done of what my calendar looks like. I schedule it every like 30 minutes, and there's just like different things. And I don't really think once. I have to move on to the next thing. I move on to the next thing. So I just do a lot of things because of the calendar. Um, and then on that note, it's kind of a strange counterintuitive thing. There's a lot of research on this actually. And what the research says is that the busier you are, so this is everyone, the busier you are, the more productive you usually are too. It's very strange. And I've noticed that when I'm very busy, I'm extremely productive. And conversely, when I'm not busy, I'm not productive. So I have to be busy to stay productive. It's very weird. But again, there's a lot of research on that that shows that. And then the last thing I'll say, which is the unfortunate part, aside from burnout, is that every single thing in life has an opportunity cost. And to do a lot of these things, I've given up a lot of things for it. One of my passions is gaming. I don't game anymore, unfortunately, because I don't have time. And the other thing is like my relationships. Um, I unfortunately don't spend enough time on relationships, so I try to compensate for that by scheduling it in, so I make time. But hopefully that answered the question a bit.
Yeah. The concept about being productive, I think it's because of momentum. Like when you get in the flow, you like all the tasks they get smashed out. And yeah, I actually wanted to kind of link it to the point of relationship because I read all your Medium articles so that I'm prepared for the interview. Uh, so you talked about you wrote about relationships in that Medium article, but I still want to get some insight into that. I myself, have a similar thing, where I have a lot of things on my plate, and I do struggle to maintain that, relationships and like missing out on weddings and sometimes due to other works and whatnot. So how do you structure time, or do you think like is it, like it is justified to kind of like get that career for your career or what you're passionate about, that you kind of sacrifice on relationships and everything, seeing that you are far ahead in life, given the age gap we have, I guess around 10 years. Yeah. So like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I struggle with this every single day. I'm actually not sure how best to answer the question, but what I can tell you is that um, there's a job, something that Steve Jobs said in his 2005 commencement speech that goes, any day you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror and you're not doing something that makes you happy, then you should stop doing it. And for me, what that translated into was that the work that I'm doing, even though it is not good for the relationships, it's what makes me happy. I think that there's a lot of fulfillment in the work that I do. And I think that that's the type of stuff I want to do for the rest of my life. Um, the problem is though, what I don't know and I'm trying to figure out is if I'm doing some of these things to hide from the work that relationships take, the bond that you build with your family, or your significant others or your friends. I'm not sure. I'm not really great with relationships, period. So I don't know if I do more work stuff because I'm hiding from those other things. I'm not really sure myself. But what I can tell you is that the work that I do, um, I enjoy. So the best way of handling relationships is that nowadays, at least, is if I ever get calls or opportunities to hang out with family or friends, I will always take it. I will always take it. I will always schedule it into my calendar, and it doesn't matter if there's like work. Work does not take precedence over that. That's one way I try to like balance it. And the reason why I did that is because Michelle Obama said it a couple of years ago. She said, whenever I have a calendar, she works off the calendar too. She will always schedule in her family and friends first. Work comes afterwards. So I try to take that to balance family and friends nowadays.
So I really want to ask, like, how do you find? Do you think you have found your North Star in life? Obviously, with now your recent position as a health data architect at Verily, you have been switching quite a lot in your career timelines. So, do you think you have found your North Star finally, or do you think you are still in the process and it's an ongoing process? What do you think about that?
Yeah, every single time I think I found the North Star, it seems as though I didn't. um, so I'll give you a very concrete example. A couple months ago, when I decided to embark on a new journey into tech, I thought I was going to spend a few years doing more tech work, like learning more about tech, like programming and coding and stuff like that. And then a couple years down the road, I would be a product manager. Now I'm 5 months into my current role. I don't know if I want to be a product manager. I want to be a software engineer. It's a very different route. So I want to get even more technical, which is why I plan to do the computer science degree or master's basically. At the same time, I don't know if that is really what I want to do too, because there's so many interests. I'm sure like you sounds like you have quite a few interests as well too. It's like which one should you focus on? Um, I'm not sure. I don't. And again, I don't. Maybe the what you said makes the most sense. I don't think that I'll ever find my North Star. I just think that the North Star just changes as you age. Yeah.
Wow. I think it does because uh, I was into sports, and then after sports, I kind of left sports. Like cricket was my like it was the thing. I wanted to be a cricket player, like a professional cricket player. And after playing, for the national team, like an under 16 national team, I was like, maybe I don't want to be a cricket player for some reason. It's so crazy, and then slowly coming into pharmacy and obviously starting a podcast, and I don't know why I came into pharmacy. Obviously, the incident, like I said before, that was one of the inclinations, of me getting into pharmacy. But still, I feel, there's always things like, maybe I should do this and maybe I should do that. It's crazy, crazy life.
Yeah,
With this,
and maybe that keeps it interesting. Keeps it
yeah,
interesting.
like spontaneous and everything. We don't want a dull life, don't we? So with this, I actually want to jump into like balance. One second. Yeah. So, like balancing and everything with all the interests and everything you have. Do you think like how do you keep a balance between chaos and peace, like with all the work and everything, all the passions you have, and then having time for yourself? How do you do that? Do,
Uh, yes. So I think that everyone needs some type of outlet um, for something like that. And I have a couple of interests and things, and I try to do to like take my mind off of any type of stresses or work related things. So for me, there's a couple of things I do. Sometimes I like to go running. It's like a very nice physical and also mental thing that helps me kind of de-stress. Meditation is something that helped a lot. I haven't done it as much lately, but when I was at the most stressed levels, I meditated daily, just for a few minutes a day, and I think that's helped calm me down and help me think straight. And then the other one is I like to write and sometimes create a video to just put all my emotions into some place. Because I think when you bottle in your emotions, it probably makes all those things worse. So just different things, and it's probably different for everyone. But those are some of the ways that I use to handle some of the chaos that's in life.
so last question before we move into the final four. Yeah, that's what we call perspective questions. So the last question is, uh, being a healthcare professional and having a social media is kind of not seen as a professional thing. I like there's a lot of thing about that. So how do you deal with that, being active on social media, LinkedIn, and everywhere?
Yeah, it's a very good question because like I still struggle with that a little bit. I think you have to be very careful about what you say on social media. I think two things. One is that whenever we're on social media, I think it's important to be as authentic as possible. Sometimes that might come across a little blunt at times, but I think it's really important because social media usually just highlights the positives, and then you got to be authentic and show some of the darker sides of it too. Secondly, I think it's important that you don't misrepresent yourself or the profession in some way. So whenever I'm doing something on social media, I also try to work with any organizations that I'm affiliated with, especially my employer, to make sure that what I say and what I do is okay. So I work very closely with all of those folks in those orgs to like, hey, I create these type of things. Is this okay? Does this look kosher? Is it appropriate? Things like that. So always checking with your employer is a very, very good thing.
It's a weird thing when they find out later, right? You don't have to.
Yeah, you don't want them to find out later. You definitely want to, as soon as you can, let them know because some of the things you say could get you laid off or fired. So you gotta be very careful.
With this, I want to jump into the perspective questions. So, the first one is, if there were three books you could recommend, which one would they be?
Oh, I like this question. Um, First question is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, helps you discover purpose in life. Second is From Zero to One by Peter Thiel, helps you think about, especially if you're interested in entrepreneurship and things like that, creativity. Very interesting book. And then the third book is Atomic Habits. I don't remember the author's name,
James Clear.
but there you go. Yeah, so you're a fan of that book too. So
Yeah.
Great Minds Think Alike. Yeah, those would be the three books.
So the next question is, if you were to go back in time, what would you do differently? 5, 10 years?
Oh. So yeah, I have had that question a few times, but it's hard to answer because I say no regrets in life. Um, I think, oh, this is a good question. I think maybe I would have worked on my content, social media a little bit more.
Mm. Obviously, with the work and everything, I'm not sure how, like, you can be regular with the social media, right?
Yeah, but that's would have been what I would have
Yeah.
done. Yeah. See.
So if you were to have dinner with three people, dead or alive, who would they be and why?
Oh, that's a good question. Uh, Maybe first one is Steve Jobs because I've drawn so much of my life inspiration from him. Uh, Second is I never remember his name, but I know it's the guy that did a great book on the last lecture. Oh, Randy Pausch. So Randy Pausch, well, both Randy Pausch and Steve Jobs passed away. I believe Randy Pausch also passed away from pancreatic cancer. He gave an amazing 2 hour the last lecture. You can look it up on YouTube. Talking about everything and anything in life, and it's just a great way to approach life. And then third is probably Denzel Washington. He said a lot of things in his commencement speeches and just interviews that I really resonate with. Um, so yeah, those are the three people.
So finally, Brian, where's the best place people can find you and come in contact with you?
Best place is probably LinkedIn, and secondly would be YouTube.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, guys and girls, this is it for the Let's Walk podcast. I hope you guys learned something, and feel free to contact Brian. He's a super cool person. And other than that, you guys know what to do. Stay blessed. Keep taking action. We will catch you in the next one.